Painting is a process of simultaneous creation and discovery. As I'm painting, I'm consciously intending to shape the color and the form in a certain way, and I'm moving it in directions I want it to go, but I'm constantly surprised and amazed by these little discoveries that happen, these accidents that are synchronicities and serendipities. The color just touching and interacting with another color in a way you'd never expect. So it's a co-creative dance. I'm enjoying the dance with the work that's emerging. And art has a vibration. Every work of art has a vibration. Whether or not you're conscious of it, it affects us. It changes our consciousness. And so despairing, nihilistic pieces of artwork bring our consciousness down, where artwork that is infused with love, with joy, with positive energy can uplift our consciousness. And that's what I'm trying to do when I'm painting. I'm trying to infuse the process with awareness, with energy, with joy. Attention to detail and yet openness to the flow, letting things come through that teach me, that unfold something for me. They say a picture paints 1,000 words, and I experience that as I paint. Volumes of information, of emotion and perception and perspective are spoken in the process of painting. When I'm painting, I go into a different state of consciousness, a state of flow and openness and receptivity to inner intuition. Art can reveal deeper truths that are invisible otherwise. Truths that come from the deepest places inside of our psyche and our soul, but even deeper still to the realms of spirit, the kingdom of God inside of us. And so when I'm painting, I'm able to tap into that place of wholeness and holiness inside. And that's what I hope to embody, so that the viewer is also able to experience their consciousness awakened, opened, uplifted. So I wanted to start with that little film clip in order to just give you a sense, which is a picture paints 1,000 words, and we can jump over those 1,000 words with a picture, a sense of what it feels like to be in a creative flow. And in that film clip, it's myself painting, but it's an invitation for all of us entering into a high vibration creative flow through the process of creativity. And what happens when we go into a space where we are in the moment, feeling the energy, responding to the colors, letting the water, the fluid energy flow on the page, we actually shift into a different part of our being, a different part of our brain. And science helps us to understand that a little bit, because what's happening from a scientific perspective is that the right and left hemispheres are syncing. They're coming together in a way where there's hemisphere sync, where the energy is moving fluidly between them. And when that happens, when we come into a right-left brain sync, we also come into a state that is known as gamma synchronicity. And that is a fifth state. So we have the state of alpha, beta, delta, theta. These are brainwave, EKG brainwave patterns that are distinct, and they represent very different levels of consciousness. The beta being sort of the busy mind on the surface, and alpha dropping a little deeper, delta and theta deeper still. But gamma is very different. Gamma is when the brain responds in a pattern of the neurons firing simultaneously and in sync. And it happens in early stages of embryonic development quite frequently, and they can see that the whole brain is lighting up. The energy is not in just one part. You're not seeing the light flickering in just one area, but the whole brain lighting up in a whoosh moment of whole brain illumination. And then that pattern tends to die off as we grow older, and it happens very rarely as you're coming into your adult time. But when it happens, we can see, is when people are meditating, when people are engaged in sports activity that are in a peak flow, dynamic activity of like a race or a extreme sport experience. It happens when people are in nature and they're relaxing into the flow of trees and flowers and all of the beautiful energies that nature provides when we're grounding into this earth. And it also happens in creativity. And so when we're in a creative flow, this is also an opening into this brain burst of whole brain illumination. And you can feel it. That's the scientific side of it, what's happening, what we're seeing from the outside, what we're watching in a neurological scan or in an ability to watch just the flickering of electrons and neurons. But what you're experiencing inside of that is a state of being. And it's a letting go of the part of ourselves that is normally caught up in what you might say is the beta mode of being involved in the details and the worries and the considerations of daily life and the linear mode of thinking and all that has to be done and the onslaught and bombardment of thought processes. It's called a lot of different things. It's monkey mind. It's mind on a hamster wheel. It's the part of us that is just busy thinking. And while that's very useful and we don't want to jettison it from our experience, I think we all know that we need and we crave to go into a deeper place of our being. And this mode, the ordinary surface mode of consciousness, is one that actually spends and exhausts our energy. It doesn't replenish it. It's something that we give our life force to, and we use it because we need to in different circumstances, but it doesn't nourish and sustain us. To be nourished and sustained, we have to go into these deeper levels of consciousness. In the beginning of mind-body research, they were mostly focused on alpha state and the states of dropping down below the beta and into these deep relaxation states, which are indeed important. But the gamma synchronicity space is one in which you're actually engaged in the world and yet coming from that place of openness. And it has a unique quality to it, which is it brings together, just as we were mentioning with right and left hemisphere, it brings together two different modes. The yang quality, the dynamic quality of attention and focus and directing the energy and being clear of what it is that you're wanting to create. So in the creative process, as I was mentioning in the film, you're directing the energy, you're wanting to shape what's happening. You're bringing in a dynamic presence into it. But at the same time, in the same moment, you're also in a very yin place. You're receiving energy, you're receptive, you're soft. You're allowing things to come through. You're allowing things to be discovered in the painting in front of you, for the colors to flow and move and change in front of you in ways that are unexpected and surprising to you. And so this unique state is something we see over and over in the practices of yoga and different spiritual traditions. It's a place of, as in Yogananda's tradition, in the energization exercises, it's called tense with will, and bring your energy into this place, vibrating with energy, really channeling energy. At the same time, you're learning to relax and feel. Tense with will, relax and feel. And this dynamic is something that we, in ordinary life, we move back and forth between them on the extreme. So we tend to like go to work and press and really push and get really a lot of that dynamic energy, pushing it and forcing it. And then we come home and we collapse, or we're laying on the couch with chips dripping from our face because we're so exhausted. So we go extreme into the dynamic and the receiving, or the soft and receptive. When we bring them closer together to where they're almost simultaneous, this is the sweet spot. When we can get it so we are attentive and dynamic and fully there with our attention and energy, and yet soft, receptive, receiving. And that is the state that we enter into when we meditate. We come into a place where we're paying full attention, where we're alert and really all of ourselves present to the moment, and yet we're soft and receiving. And so this is the sweet spot, the magic place that brings about the whole brain, the whole being. And it's something that we can practice and have experience of in creative process, because in the play of creativity, we naturally, easily go into that place of childlike wonderment, of play. And so we are very engaged in what's happening. Time flies. We don't even know that it's passed. We're not thinking about the result or the outcome. We're melting into the moment and having the experience intrinsically valuable for itself. And we are receiving in that moment inspiration. Because when we come into that place, we become an open channel. A portal opens inside of us. We begin to receive inspiration and insight and information and wisdom that comes to us from the soul, from the deeper divine place inside of us that each one of us has at the core of our being. And so even as we're acting in the world, acting in the process of creating, whether it's paint or clay or collage or any modality, we're at the same time tuning into what's coming from inside of us. And so the creative process can be profoundly healing also. It lets us tap into that deeper place inside that gives nourishment to our psyche and soul. And so instead of spending the currency of our electric activity in our brain and the currency of our energy in our body in a way that is depleting ultimately, we're engaging in something that nourishes and gives nutrient to our psyche and soul. There's an interesting thought in the world about flow, and it started, I think, with this book that I wanted to get the title correctly, which is Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience, and the author's name is quite something to pronounce. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. I'm probably wrong on that, and maybe we can put it on the screen, but it was an interesting study to show that there is a science to the peak state, to the place where we are actually operating in the most optimal way as human beings. And that state is, again, a state of flow. And he was talking about how we tend to think of ourselves in a place where if I'm really happy or the great optimal experience of my life, it's going to be something where I'm like laying on a beach or I'm in my little cozy cottage somewhere. We imagine that what it is that is going to bring us that sense of happiness is where we're kind of finished and relaxed and done. And we're going, now I can relax. But what is actually true is that our optimal experiences come to be when we're in a state that I've just described, of flow, when we're engaged, when part of us is fully brought forth against the wind, so to speak, of life, pressing into what's happening, and yet receiving and being infused with something greater than ourselves. And so that sweet spot of all of our energy, all of who we are, pressed into service, pressed into being, at the same moment that we're open and soft and receiving what's coming to us from higher and deeper places. And so that is the flow experience. And the flow experience is something that is easily accessible to all of us through, again, meditation, time in nature, and engaging in creative process, engaging in the flow of our own self-expression without attention to the product or without attention to the outcome. And that's the final key that I wanted to bring into mind, is that one of the ways that we can most quickly shift into that state in the middle of our day is to come into the moment, because this magic flow state happens when you are in the present. The mind on the surface, with its busy, high expense account of, of energy expenditure, is busy with its past and future. It's busy thinking about what it already did and what it's going to do. And so it's stretched on either side of a present moment that it can't enter into. And this is what that place, the magic to that secret entrance to that place where we are in the flow, is in the moment. And so that's why the breath can bring us there, a yoga posture, taking a moment to close our eyes and center, such simple things, moving our body a little bit, letting ourselves release tension, taking a noisy breath. Anything that helps us to just come to the present moment. And in that moment, there isn't a concern for what happened before, what will happen next, what the outcome will be, what the product will be, but simply the flow of experience itself. And so that's what I invite all of us to play with and dip our toes into and experience, is becoming an open channel for the flow of divine life force energy moving through us. We are all artists and channels of a divine creative energy. And when we step into that, when we open to it, we come into a place of wholeness, a place of optimal function, a place of well-being, of satisfaction and deep meaning, sense of being in the right place at the right time, being who we're truly meant to be. And so, let's do it.